So what we're seeing in enterprise technology is quite a shift. Enterprises are really trying to deploy agentic systems, but with some of the same mindset of the past. We're really seeing that they're thinking about these as projects, use cases, one module at a time, seeing the different elements of what it is that they're wanting to do. It's less and less about, piecemeal and more about how we can do end-to-end process. And so in implementing some of these solutions, folks are really starting to see that there's a lot more juice that can be squeezed out of some of these, initiatives that have been done in the past. What we've done at Wonderbots too is try not to completely scrap some of the things that have been built, but augment them, infuse them, see where it is that we can make them set up for success in the global agentic AI market. If you look at the numbers behind it and follow the money of some of the investments that have been made in agentic startups, it's really, really staggering. It's looking a lot like .com. It's looking a lot like an AI bloat, but there's still a lot of risk and a lot of infrastructure globally that needs to be in place for this truly to reach, a maximum potential. But the type of investments we're seeing governments make, private agencies, and being able to support this ultimately implies that everybody's moving in this direction. As we look through these different waves of enterprise AI, there's been several phases of adoption. We've seen automation, rules-based tasks, deterministic workflows in if-then statements. This is process improvement 101, right? And it was really cool to finally be able to unexcel ourselves, right? And be able to do a little bit more than pivot tables and get some of those things done that added productivity to the workplace. We began to see AI assistants in the back office in more cohesive structure. Finance and accounting were the early adopters. You see a lot of that AI assistants and chatbots. Some of them were really bad. It's hit 0, 0, 0 because the human was always better. So that was kind of this wave of trying to get these things to begin to be a little bit more autonomous, and it was more of an assistance wave. We saw the beginning of co-pilots. I think some are, they've upgraded a little bit, but there was an original co-pilot before that term got coined by Microsoft. Predictive models, decision support, but just augmenting data, supporting, right? The AI assistants, giving a little bit of oomph behind the data that we already know. And the wave that we're entering now is the agentic. That's really where we're seeing autonomous agents, agency, using the faculty, the brain behind these deterministic rules that we had in the past. So when it comes to looking at what agentic AI is going to be for us, we're really starting to see that they're reasoning systems. They actually can give insights that perhaps we weren't able to gather because the computing power, obviously, of machines has always outpaced what we're capable of doing as humans. And the other thing that's been really cool is the multitask execution. So anybody familiar with nascent RPA or deterministic rules knows that there's always an if-then statement and an outcome as a result of a bunch of deterministic multi-steps, right? And now, instead of having to program those if-then statements and let the exceptions go to a queue or a human or another decision point, we now can have task execution based on those multi-step points, right? And over time, learn it better, and over time, probably give us insights that humans weren't able to track, as I said. And that's how some of these agents have been born, seeing some of the data that's been up and coming. So it's been a really exciting wave because it's given the power back to the organizations to begin to see some of the areas that they can reap the benefits of this new wave. We still have one key problem. Every single time that we sit down with a client to explain what it is that we're going to do to move forward, we have to think through what the ROI is going to be. Now, being a project, it makes it really easy to set up something that can give, an ROI in 6 months. The old way of doing this was modeling out that 6-month value to a 2-year, 3-year, 5-year deal with, whatever license, offering and services package perhaps you bought. But now we're seeing exponential ROI, sometimes in spurts. And then sometimes what's being exposed gives us new ideas and new places to go, thus creating opportunities for new solutions. So because of the complexity in which the outcomes begin to be generated, and these guys will go into some of the details there, it begins to be loose spaghetti that we have to, take a peek at and see where it is that we're going to kind of put it back in. That's why governance is crucial to an AI implementation. Understanding the guardrails of where you're going to go and what business outcomes you're going going to do. As with the amount of power that comes with some of these technologies that we're seeing, comes the potential for error. And we're not here to lie or say that it's easy peasy, put it in and you're good to go. We want to talk about the reality of it. And it's so important to take a step back and ensure that the design principles are in place to ensure that what we're going to implement here truly produces the outcome that we're desiring, preserving the safety and integrity of the data that it's leveraging to make those decisions. So before and after agentic AI, here's our prediction. We focused on, building workflows, helping clients understand that the shortest distance was between 2 points. Now, I'm not saying that RPA is dead. I am not one of the people that's saying RPA is over. It has a place just like every other toolkit, in your toolbox at home, right? It is but a lever. And sometimes it's the most cost-effective approach to getting some of the elements done, right? But the design is slightly going to change now, right? We were focused on automation workflows. Now what we're able to do is have the outputs of these automation workflows give us different direction. It can be output to another orchestrating agent that then puts it into a completely different process. For the first time, procure to pay actually can be procure and the finance department working within the same agents, right? And so it really can be procure to pay, not procure and pay, right? Which is what it has been. And so we're really able to kind of connect the dots of those human systems and agents in a more cohesive and a more natural way, having this agentic framework. Heavy development cycles. Anybody who's at the forefront of that, and I can't wait for Cam to tell some stories of his days of starting these off. But heavy implementations, timelines, projects, the same kind of stuff that we deal with, with tech implementations that kind of make your eyes roll. It's like, oh, I thought it was going to be easy and it was going to be tomorrow and it was going to be so fast. And there's so many different organizations that have to come together in groups within a business to make sure that those implementations happened in the early days. And they were static rules-based process. Now, with the way that we're putting things in, the deployment of cloud, the acceptance of APIs now, those used to be something we had to kind of convince folks of their safety and the ability to, to open up. Oh my God, open source, heaven forbid we ever, touched anything that came from the World Wide Web. But now we're able to control that, right? So we're able to have faster prototyping. We're able to have faster and how it is that we're putting these things together. And then lastly, the dynamic workflows, that can adapt and reason in this agentic AI instead of, stagnant if-then statements, deterministic rules that must stick to the script, right? And so we're really excited because in-house we're seeing, the agentic era kind of take off. And so for our clients who are getting behind this and new folks who are new to, and just starting in the agentic AI era, it's an exciting place because truly for the first time, I do believe that business and technology is coming together in a way that's useful for both. So the new solution stack, this has kind of been, gathered over time of folks thinking it through. Gartner's still pushing the idea of BOAT, right? This business optimization layer where orchestration and all the tools that come with what we used to call intelligent automation kind of stick together. But there's a data layer that's a little bit different, and there's an agent layer that's a little bit different to what we used to talk about, right? So the business layer, first and foremost, always important. I wonder about, we don't talk about anything else but your business outcomes, right? I mean, we will be talking about technology today. Technology is the great enabler that does it. But at the end of the day, we're going to put together and stitch together a solution that is going to have and achieve the business outcomes. The business layer is crucial and fundamental to all of these. The process layer becomes less and less important in AI, and I bet these guys will challenge me in a way on that. But as far as the solution stack, it used to be that you had to pay for tools to help you understand your process and to document it. And we had to understand the current state to be able to do a future state. That's kind of been scrapped, which is kind of cool. We kind of a sketch, erase your entire process layer of what you have, and we reimagine the way that these data points can connect and talk. So the process layer really becomes more about where is it that the data has to flow, right? And the agent layer is what helps, kind of perform those outcomes. Integration is always part of any organization. We have bespoke solutions. We have multi-term deals with, with some of our Stoic systems, with some of our SaaS providers. So there's always going to be an integration layer, whatever part of the journey of implementation you're there. And so those are definitely still part of the stack. And I think the data layers just have a little bit more importance because we're really able to process and look at a tremendous amount of data that gives us the ability to look at it differently. It's not just about kind of the 1, 2, 3 outputs that come from a invoice processing, or reconciliation process or a matching exercise. It's really the insights of why was that the answer and how many times has that been the exception. And we're able to use those data points in later solutions and in later frameworks on how we optimize for our clients. So we're really excited about the new solution stack. Wonderbots has always been on the forefront of making sure that the technology that we have is leveraging the latest and greatest, but always sticking to the roots, which is making sure that we're looking at end-to-end processes, that we're making sure that we're setting up for scale, and that the solutions that we come up are resilient. So with that, I'm going to ask my fellow panelists to join me, please. All right, guys. So most of the people that we have a few folks that come to this webinar every month. They all know that I'm a history nerd. So I can't ever start any concept about what's happening today without talking about what we've come from, right? Where we started and where we've come from. So Cam, I'm going to start with you. So Cam has an awesome Wonderbots initiation story. He was a client of ours before we ultimately recruited him, and now leads our solution practice. So Cam, introduce yourself, tell everybody a little bit about what you do at Wonderbots, and tell us about the early days of automation and how it was that the solution mindset was something that was embedded in you and stuck to it, and you've created a department around it. I mean, since the beginning of your automation days, how did that come to pass, and why is that reusability framework so important to you?
Yeah, Paula, really appreciate the intro and happy to be speaking here today. So for those who don't know, I've been at Wonderbots for 5-6 years now. But for the time before that, I was still working in intelligent automation, whether that be when I was at Viacom, working in a data science and robotics division, helping lead the team there, or even before when I was in financial advisory consulting. And even in those early days, right, we're talking, flying down to banks in Charlotte, traveling to the Midwest to help with automations, even financial institutions in New York, installing some of these early RPA systems. And, back then, we're talking features, right? We're talking, this is a nice to have, it's something exciting, it's something new, but we weren't even at the function level yet, right? And so even at those early features days, Blue Prism, we have our objects, we're putting these together, just trying to get some reuse out of them, starting with databases and then some of the systems. And then we really went to the function layer and saying, okay, finance team, okay, HR, what are some repeatable day-to-day functions that we can automate to help you make your life a little bit easier, whether it was just as simple, Paula, is getting an email back then, right? To uploading a report, right? And now with RPA, right, it's processes. It was end-to-end, repeatable, larger, right? Maybe not massive, larger processes, right? Right now we are seeing that same pattern and that same maturity curve with these AI tools, whether that be agents, whether that's productivity tools, whether it's frankly agentic RPA, which makes use of both the older technology and this new frontier technology, right? We started with the features. Hey, I can write in ChatGPT. I can get my my fitness report, my running routine, if you will, going to functions, right? Okay, now I'm really automating a specific task into my day-to-day workflow, and now here we are, right? Curves faster. It comes for us all though, and now we're at the process end. Like you said, how do I automate the procure to pay from end to end? And it's building, Paula, these repeatable patterns. That's going to drive the ROI. It's going to drive productivity, and frankly, it's going to drive adoption, right? And that's really exciting to see today, and exciting to be working with this great team, Sharon and Ted, right, who joined Wonderbot, and to help build some of these solutions and bring them to market. I know throughout the course of today, we're going to talk a little bit about what we're seeing, what we have seen, where we're going. So very excited.
Thanks so much, Cam. And Ted, welcome to the party. We are so excited to have you. I wanted to ask you a little bit about, in your past life, you described a time where AI, and we've been talking about AI for a long time. It's funny. I actually had a friend that just, she's staying with me, and this morning she started asking, so I think we need agents at my company. She's in marketing, and I'm like, Well, okay, we'll have a talk. And my sister, who I don't think has known what her older sister does for 15 years, is now saying, Paula, I think my team is doing agents and like they might need to talk to your company. So people are finally understanding it. And we're like, we've been doing this for a while. But let's talk about what it looked like a while ago, right? Because there was a reason we didn't just evangelize it and push it out, right, Ted? So tell us a little bit about unleashing an early chatbot, which everybody already knows my thoughts on those. I make fun of the 000 all the time. But tell us a little bit about that early chatbot, some of the guardrails that you guys realized, were turning into spaghetti, if you didn't ring them in, and how that's changed with your confidence in deploying AI today at our client sites.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Paula. It's interesting, and it comes back to the importance of solution design and looking at these systems. AI conversational skills are a common application to chat. So even when you scope or bound the conversation with what seem like straightforward rules, sometimes the underlying nuance of the subject matter can get lost. So I'll give an example. I know a service organization that deployed a chat agent to guide tradespeople to what licenses and what permits were needed for certain types of work. So how much basically can you change a plumbing system before you need to pull a permit, or how much framing do you have to do before you should call in a structural engineer? So if you deploy your agent with those rules exactly as written, your guidance doesn't really match what's practical. This is what my partner organization found out. If you let the agent talk practically about what's done, then you're definitely going to break some rules. And so real advice, real informed chat comes from these nuances in these areas of knowledge. And that's just harder to convey or produce with an AI chatbot. AI and rules-based systems powering those chatbots, they just want to do a perfect job off of clear rules. And so some of these problems can be a tough fit, as we found. So.
Well, unfortunately, as the technology gets better, and it's not just about our bias training, we actually have modules and large language models that can actually fit into what we're doing today, so that it's not completely dependent on that, right? So it's really exciting, and it's amazing, kind of the insights that organizations can now pull historically as well, and look back and say, was that the right decision that we made that year? Things might have looked a little different. So it exposes a lot. So Sharon, I'll turn to you. Another wonderful add to the Wonderbots family. We're so happy to have you. From your perspective, as as kind of more on the development side, through to solution engineering and kind of seeing that evolution of how the tools have evolved. Tell us a little bit about the capability progression that we've seen, of kind of the tool stacks that we're using, maybe one tool, what it looked like and what it is now, but really what that ease of adoption and kind of the advancement of the technology, what those capabilities have really meant to us and to our clients, going forward in this agentic era, as we're now calling it.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Paula, thank you for the question and the introduction. For those of you who don't know me, I've joined Wonderbots as of January, pretty new here, but I come with about 10 years of experience in artificial intelligence, where I worked mostly on the delivery side, like Paula mentioned, as a developer, and now I'm in the solutioning side. So from my experience as a developer, what has been most striking about the operationalization of AI over the past couple of years is how rapidly we've moved from concept to operational reality. Paula, you mentioned this is just like the dot-com boom that we saw in the past era. So if you think about pre-2019, before the modern wave of generative AI, most AI projects that at least I have done were experimental. We worked with prehistoric small data sets, ran pilots, and asked fundamental questions. Can this even work? So back then, AI was primarily analytical. I remember building a forecasting model with some data, which again took us about 4 months to develop. And then we focused on a lot of structured data, dashboards, and forecasts. So it could provide insights, but it couldn't really take action. So I'd like to break down the progression of AI in 3 phases from what I've seen. So the first phase, like I mentioned, was the experimental AI. You see organizations running pilots, testing, trying to understand where technology could fit. And then Post 2019, when the chat GPTs of the world were introduced, companies began analyzing models to structure data. You could see powering dashboards, forecasting, recommendation, predictive analytics. Again, a lot of work done with structured, very predictive data to gain insights, but it largely stopped at the point of analysis. So what we're seeing now is the most important shift. And Ken, you mentioned this as well, maturity in AI and the new frontier. So AI is no longer just analytical information. It's becoming agentic, embedded directly into business workflows where I can extract, automate, and make real-time decisions. So one of the biggest reasons for this shift is the ability to handle unstructured data, which is very critical for business organizations because a lot of data in organizations reside in the unstructured data capability stack. So now us taking this data and contexting it at scale is, it's getting the AI world into an operational transformation. So because of this convergence, organizations can move faster than what we did before. And AI is no longer just a data science initiative. It's becoming a core enterprise capability.
And I think not only a capability, I think it's becoming a mandate, right? And I think more and more we're trying to match the demand, but again, making sure all those guardrails and everything is in place so that when you go, right? Because we're still working on that. So Sharon and Cam, I'm gonna toss this one to you, and Cam, maybe I start with you here, because we all can agree that that there has been a change, there has been a shift. What I'm trying to, let folks understand here is, in this shift and in these things that are maybe nuanced and difficult to understand, how can organizations maintain transparency and accountability, right? How can they show what these agents are doing in a way that makes the organization feel warm and fuzzy, included, mitigate some of the change management risk, when companies are kind of approaching this. So tell us a little bit about some of the insights that are visible and some of that transparency that's taken place that I think gives comfort in these times.
Yeah, absolutely, Paula. With development, and I'll take it back to even just the solution design and gathering process, right? Historically, the friction that we see, whether it's development, design, or the implementation of the process, the friction is from deviations from the expected outcomes, from what the business wants to do, from what a manager has told their development team to do, right? And as we look at how agents execute, this is no different than you or I completing our job, right? And affectionately, we call this drift from the expected outcome, right? And then the quality of those results is the fidelity. How concise, how direct, how accurate, how close to that corporate business aligned output and answer is the agent, generating, right? And so this isn't just a set and forget, right? These aren't simple rule-based, hey, I need the report every day at 6 a.m. If you're using your AI agents for that, they can do it. It might be a little bit more effort to implement, but that's really not what we're expected to be using it for, as Sharon was saying. This is for mass data analysis of unstructured information, for human interaction, right? That's more unstructured, more open-ended, right? And there is a constant cycle of analysis, review, and improvement with these agents in order to make sure that they're not drifting from your business goal, your business message, and that you have really high quality and high fidelity answers. So those are table stakes now, I think, Paul, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Observability is key.
Well, and that's the point. And Sharon, so tell us a little bit about some of the monitoring tools and some of the stuff you're able to see. Just quickly describe some of that for us. So
Paula,
because we finally have them.
This becomes, I think these questions becomes imperative in AI adoption, especially when it comes to agentic AI, because every time we go into conversations, the most common question that we see is, how can we trust an agent? How do we know it's making the right decision? How do we ensure fairness, bias, and all these metrics? And I think this is a pretty common pattern that we see in implementation, that artificial intelligence and governance and transparency go hand in hand, right? Because if you develop and deploy an AI model, you need to explain the results. You need to justify the reasons. And the beautiful thing is, the hyperscalers of the world, we already see governance boards, dashboards that ensure fairness, bias, transparency. So I think that is an important tool for us to understand, and not just implement the tool, but just understand the capabilities, the risks is also needed, because I think there's a flip coin in implementing, AI. It's powerful, but we need to make sure that it's ethical, compliant, and auditable for some vectors.
Absolutely. And so Ted, I'm gonna pop back to you. So when organizations are, have all of these things to consider, right? It feels like, oh my gosh, that's gonna take a lot of time. I thought AI was supposed to be fast. What's going on? Right. So how does an organization balance the speed of deployment with the need for customization, the need for ensuring that their requirements, if they're healthcare, it's HIPAA, if they're, in a state that requires GDPR compliance, that it's GDPR compliant, right? So how do you ensure that speed to value and customization has a healthy balance at the time of deployment?
Yeah, it's a good question. Personally, I'm a big proponent on focusing on MVP, minimally viable product. So from that, you define what is the core mission, where do you see the highest ROI, work to get that launched and used. Once you do that, then really the real customization needed to do often appears out of that. And I think what we can build on to get us ramped to that is this incredible investment we've made already in process documentation. So, I love from the previous diagram, we show that process sits between the business and AI. All of the work that industry leaders and business operations specialists have put into process optimization and defining and documenting the business process can be a leapfrog into where we need to build or start with AI. Even traditional models, BPMN models that were sometimes built as one-off, either as an operational improvement or the design or specification for a new software system. These are the definition of how our business should operate. It's an incredible institutional knowledge that we've invested in that can be an instant springboard to the implementation of an MVP product. BPMN language is a language of business that we understand and that AI now understands. AI can read process documentation, it can write process documentation, understand it, traverse it. And so when you can instantly take an AI system and have it understand the context of how a business should operate, it can make contextual recommendations and build out solutions automatically. And we see this with the automation tooling we use today, instantly through conversation or instantly through providing one of these very rich pictures of how a business should operate. It translates to your first MVP product of an AI solution. Unabashedly, I'm a process guy, have been my whole career, and it's a really exciting time for me to see all these process artifacts being instantly usable by the designers of AI systems and the AI itself to help build the right technology.
Yeah, I'm a total process nerd too. I was born in the process improvement space where Visio diagrams were manual and not as cool as automation workflows are today. But that's definitely kind of the origin story there. One of the things that you mentioned that I think, kind of is important to reflect on real quick before we move any further is the types of technologies. So, Ted, I'll boomerang this right back to you. What are the first questions that organizations should ask before selecting technology, right? And I think you kind of alluded to it there in saying that it could be this or it could be that. But what are the first questions before what's the tool?
The question I like to ask, and I'll start with what was the traditional automation criteria, right? It used to be, we used to ask, what's repeatable, what's robotic, what's the work at scale that people don't want to do? Agentic automation, now the question we ask is 180-degree shift. What's mission critical? What's high value? What's expert work that you can build on a comprehensive set crossed with all your institutional data that's going to give you true ROI? So, it used to be, the human in the loop was for like nuanced tweaking of the hard work that automation couldn't do. Now the human in the loop's job is to truly understand the recommendation and just hit the button. And so that's why I say ask what if you had a magic wand and could do anything instantly across the universal data set of information. What would you do? How would your business be better? And when you isolate what those things are, then you can scale back to what's an actual technical implementation you can do that can deliver on some of those things.
Yeah, we can dream bigger, right? If you can dream it, we can build it. No, I love that. So and then kind of a part two of that, because I think ultimately what you're saying is that we now ask, what is the outcome? What are the results? What is the end point of this Visio diagram, squiggly mess of tools and technologies and people and humans and orchestration taking place? What do I got to get to? What's the answer, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what we're asking is, what is the right answer for your organization? All right, let's reverse engineer into the tools and the solution and the framework that's going to work for you, right? And so real quick, Cam, I'm going to ask you this one. When looking at this, in a mature automation program, right? Because we have some folks that listen to this that have already built it, like, okay, I already know that. I already asked all those questions. We already did the low-hanging fruit. What are some of the things that you need to look at in past solutions and past automations that you've done before preparing to infuse, iterate, or agentify, however you want to call it? We'll see in 6 months what people are saying. Agentify, what is it that you have to look at from the solution perspective before being prepared to kind of enhance or augment?
Yeah, I'll keep it pretty boring, at least initially here, Paula, and it's data.
Yep.
Right? Historically, we've seen this increase substantially and rapidly over the past couple of years. The data quality or the amount of data has just been lacking, right? And now, as we've seen with mass aggregation, there was then a need to classify, store, sort, to label this data for use, right? And so the really easy question to ask is, I have all these automations, conceptually or practically standardizing a lot of this data now into known formats, into known ideally usable formats. How can I now feed this in to the agents that we are using today, right? And that right there is an easy entry point for you to say, I know this is at least meeting a certain quality threshold because I've automated it. Hopefully, let's start using that, right? And it reminds me of this, some of our customers, Paula, right? We will go in and we will automate one of their business processes, right? Maybe it's document automation, maybe it's an ETL component with one of our pre-built solutions, and we get visibility into their organization, right? This is where your data is coming from. Okay, now we need to integrate with your vendor database. Oh, your vendor database is a little bit awful. Let's help you correct that. Is there a process we can do there? Now your vendor database is corrected. Oh, well, now it's the GL coding component. It's because it's not being recorded in your ERP correctly. Well, let's correct that. Now that you have these components correct, now we can start focusing on things like reconciliation. We can focus on more robust reporting, right? Whether that's just standard, hey, RPA, I need this every Monday, or agentic forecasting, going and pulling this data now that you know it is clean because of these standardized processes. So it's your existing RPA or your existing automation implementations aren't dead weight. They aren't bad, but they are a source of something that you can really use here because of the standardization that hopefully you've applied throughout your existing processes.
Yep, and where you haven't, the gap analysis can be exposed to as a first pass of your agentic preparation, right? So riddle me this, what did I do wrong? And it can help kind of prepare you for skill there too. So you talked about a little bit about our clients. I think that's the best way for folks to understand, empathize, relate. And these are some referenceable clients that we have. We won't mention them by name due to recording, but if you have questions specific to some of the use cases that we'll kind of talk here, feel free to reach out and we're happy to make an introduction. Sharon, I'll start with you. We have a B2C mid-sized retailer. Tell us a little bit about how solution design was important, to ensuring that their answers to their, challenge statements, problem statements, were adhered to. And how did you approach that with a solution mindset?
So we deployed a really good solution to a trucking company who was in the manufacturing sector. So what they had to capture was they had critical information coming in from truck tickets, which was a unique use case because this was spanning across North America. We had different languages. So the idea when we had to go in and solution, the very first question that I would always like to ask is what problem are we truly trying to solve? Because technology alone does not create value. We need to understand the business outcome, what we care about, whether it's operational efficiency, customer satisfaction, or strategic decision making. So for this use case, it was obviously operational efficiency. So the next question that I asked was, are we ready? Now, Cam brought this up, whenever you go in to an organization and when you think of scale, it comes down to data. Right? Data is important because if we have the right data, it's easy to have a well-defined process, align stakeholders, and support AI initiatives. Without the right set of data, even the most sophisticated AI tools can underperform because we don't have the right representative sample. So that was, whenever real quick, when we solution, understanding what the outcome and what we are trying to solve is very empirical. And then understanding if the organization or the team is ready. And another thing that I really want to understand is the scalability of it. Now, because a lot of organizations, when they select an AI tool, they think about near-term wins or quick wins. But something important to ask is how do we plan to scale? Because most commonly we see when there are mature organizations with mature solutions, they would always try to scale, maybe like cross-platform or as a scalable solution. So I would love to ask that as well. And I think those would be the critical dependence that I would ask when we solution a process or a problem.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much. And that's just an example of a retailer. And I think as we deploy that, expose more data, we'll be able to see even more of what, of what they're capable of. So the solutioning is but the tip of the iceberg, in really unraveling and uncovering what we're going to truly expose for them. So Ted, I'll take it to you. Professional services firm. You had a great example when we were prepping of a mid-sized professional services firm that what we started with, maybe not what we're ending with, but solution design was definitely crucial to determining the right path there.
It was, yeah. This is a neat opportunity, a professional services firm who makes their living off of valuing assets. And so specifically large equipment machines, what's the value of them? And so exciting for a couple reasons. One, from a solution design perspective, we have to look at what are we really doing? We're really just valuing assets, which is a business need that applies across industries, but for theirs, it's very specific. It's fun for me because I'm not just a process guy, I'm also a tools guy. I have a bit of a shopping issue buying tools, and so love working with them to understand all the large equipment and tools that they trade in. But the underlying value that we can offer through AI and expansion is with data. So this topic of data has come up here to illustrate it in their point. The best way to value a piece of equipment is if you find something that doesn't exist, which is another sale record of the same piece of equipment in the same city at the same time that you're trying to offer. Of course, that doesn't exist. And so you have to deviate from that to find needles in the haystack, which is that exact same piece of equipment in the exact same condition, but maybe in a different city, sold maybe a year ago. And even finding that is hard, but AI can help you cover a large amount of ground because those needles exist in the haystack, and AI has the momentum, the patience, and the tenacity to dig through the haystack and find all those needles. And so as we deploy agentic AI to help them scour the universe of data to find all of these data points, other pieces of equipment that have sold in different parameters, following a policy table, we can collect a data set of information that can be leveraged to make the best recommendation for a price value for that equipment. great application of AI at scale to gather data from various sources, but also leveraging traditional RPA capabilities to understand different data sources like auction websites, sale websites, their own historical data set, et cetera. Very fun program.
Well, and it's funny too, because sometimes they just come to us and say, I want AI.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like somebody said, you need AI, and that's the question. I want AI.
Uh-huh.
Okay, hold on. So right, we have to unpack that a little bit to really determine what it is that you want. And again,
Yeah.
sometimes it's not AI. Oh my goodness, imagine that, right? Sometimes it is another set of tools. So Cam, tell us a little bit about we have an enterprise consumer goods company. It's been a client for several years. Again, solution design, just as the marketer who tells the stories after all these fantastic happy examples of clients. This was one that was so interesting too, because as it started and where it ended, and how it continues to grow, seemed to be completely due to a solution design framework being implemented from the beginning. So tell us a little bit about that one.
Yeah, Paula, this is one of my favorite stories, right? And a classic one. You go to a customer, you start discussing their overall process. 500,000 invoices, tens of thousands of vendors, lots of formats, field offices. You start learning about the business, right? And as we're working with this on them and you're automating their process, identifying these business rules, you start to learn about each other. And what we found as we were working with this customer is that they also have massive reporting needs to the federal government, to state level, right? And we said, hey, we can do that. We have ETL essentials, right? We can help you here. And these tools are two pre-builts that play in the sand together really well. ETL being a data acquisition and transformation engine, document automation being a data extraction and cleansing engine, right? And so pretty quickly we went from, within a year, we went from, hey, let's do document automation to let's help you with your annual reporting. Let's help you with reconciliation as well. And it just speaks to the fact that, if you sit down, you learn the business, you work with the customers, and regardless of if it's RPA, intelligent automation, AI, you really work to understand the story and the needs, you're going to be able to expand that footprint, find more opportunities for automation, and really find a way to make everybody happy.
That's fantastic. No, I love that story too, because it was just a building block. It was truly the Legos, as they continue to increase. And we have a question here in the chat that I think segues beautifully with that. Because the business landscape does change so rapidly because of technology, geopolitics, absolutely. How do we ensure that agentic solutions remain reliable and maintainable as processes inevitably evolve, right? And what Cam just described is just that. This began as an RPA solution 6 years ago. As it's been augmented, optimized along the way, we now have AI insights that are powering the same deterministic rules from before, but the framework never moved, right? And we didn't have to rip and replace because a new shiny toy came along. Right. And that is what's so important about the design framework. If you eliminate the tools and all the inbox noise that you have from every .ai firm, .platform, .do this with me.com, and you just stop for a second to really do what these guys have described that we've done with our clients and say, what is it that we're trying to achieve, right? The tools are secondary to making sure that the outcome happens. There's multiple. There's some that are great and that are competing. There's some that might be fitting in your budget. There's some that might not, right? And that's the job of the solution designer, to be able to create the outcomes within the time constraints and the budget boundaries that are given, right? And usually we surprise and delight, and they recognize that they recoup not only that initial investment, but they've already set themselves with a little bit of an investment fund, to fortify the programs going forward. So that's how we do it. To answer the question, is we make sure that we're setting our clients up with disposable cash from their own investments to be able to reinvest and have that innovation fund continue to be populated by the organization. It's called self-sustaining, and we set our clients up for that. All right, guys, in the interest of time, I'm going to pop over to some of the questions that I know folks were interested in, asking some advice from the field from you guys. So I'm going to start with you, Sharon. So Agentic AI, it introduces systems that plan, reason, take actions. So how does that change, when you're designing kind of a solution framework? If there's so many different elements, how do you aggregate those into one simplified approach that everybody can kind of work off? Describe that process to us a little bit, how you pull everybody together for these initiatives.
Yes, Paula. So what's fundamentally changing with agentic AI is that now enterprise systems are shifting from workflow-driven architecture to goal-driven architecture. Agentic AI specifically, introduces something different here. These systems can plan, reason, take actions to achieve an objective. So instead of programming every step, we design the environment around the agent. I think that is a newer complex concept as to a prehistoric workflow where we would just create rules, build integrations to the system. So now with agents, the data it can access and enterprise tools it can use, and the guardrails it must operate within are goal-driven and amalgamable, right? So this means that applications start to look less rigid and more like a capability platform. So agents might retrieve information from a knowledge base, extract, insights from documents, or even interact with ERP systems and trigger a flow. So what I really like about, how agentic AI introduce systems is also how it can it can perform in cross-functional enterprise solutions. For example, let's say we are building a reconciliation system for an accounts payable team. Can it scale to a procurement team? Yes, it can. So I think that is the beauty of it. And at Wonderbots, we have pre-built solutions, right? ETL essentials, document automation. I think the beauty of having a pre-built is it's no longer only speed to value, it's also speed to scale. Because with these goal-driven architectures, we can integrate and scale across cross-functionalities. We can scale it across different processes, which I think is a fundamental change than to historically working in a deterministic way.
So real quick, what is the translation of skills from deterministic to AI in your experience?
Okay, so with deterministic to AI, I think it's a translation of progression. So when we think about deterministic, let's take robotic process automation, for example, right? So robotic process automation or any technology has been constantly reinventing the wheel. So we went from RPA to document understanding, and now we're going into agentic AI. So I think the evolution will always be apparent and always be changing with the landscape of AI and the mitigations and the rules that come into. So I think it's a constant rolling stone where you would always, do better and get better with the implementation of artificial intelligence.
So the skills you must upskill is the message there from Ms. Sharon.
It will always be an upskill in the world of AI because we would always you see a new technology implemented every single day, something new. So I think AI will always be a learning curve for years to come.
Yes, no, absolutely. And then you can get partners and just not deal with that and go back to your core competency. There's that option too. Yeah. All right, so Ted, end-to-end process improvement. The tools have changed, but the framework is the same. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse, but give us the quick and dirty of what your experience has been, this being true throughout time, and a little bit about how, as complexity grows, what have we been doing to kind of mitigate that and simplify these concepts for our clients?
We still need to cover all the segments of valuable delivery. And so within that means, although it's accelerated, we're developing quicker, we're designing quicker, we're implementing quicker, we're also testing quicker. All those phases and gates are required. So where we use AI to augment how quickly we develop through vibe coding, how quickly we design through interactive design feedback, and how quickly we test through automatic testing, using AI agents to test their own work product, all those gates are still necessary. And in fact, the human responsibility for each of those is still strong. In some cases, it's even more elaborate. So I'll focus on testing, for instance. It used to be to test out a system to say it's production ready. We ran a bunch of tests. overnight, and we came in the morning and we looked at how many red X's we got, right? Things broke. And when we went fix those things, we're doing bigger, more intelligent solution designs. The errors aren't red X's anymore. They are incorrect answers. They are misdirected results, drift, biased answers. And so the human's role is very much at scale to go through all of the testing results, understand them as the knowledge worker who's in charge, and declare that these are the right answers and move it forward. All of that happens, though, in an accelerated time frame. We don't take 3 weeks to do manual testing. We take one night to do automated testing, but then maybe 2 weeks to really understand, digest, and process those results so that we as the owners of the program can declare that they were actually successful to the mission, to the objectives of the program.
I think that's really well said, Ted. And I think, as part of, what we abide by, which is our, Agentic Process Management, APM framework, it's important for us to continue to have those progression metrics that we're able to talk through with our clients. And that's just so crucial to making sure that there's continuous alignment, because there are moments of defeat and despair and, oh, we worked so hard and the thing didn't work, right? We're not here to paint a rosy fuzzy picture. But the outcomes are just so cool once you get there. And if you really stop and think about what's important, it really just makes a world of difference. And the adoption, and everybody gets excited, and then you win prizes at your organizations, all the good things. So Cam, we've seen the importance of this for a long time. And I think, it was brilliant of you to begin to frame this out, as one of the members of the senior leadership team, and say, I don't think that solutions is a pre-sales function. I don't think that solutions belongs in delivery. I think that solutions is its own bespoke department. So I love that about you. We have been together 6 years. Yes, it's true. Our work relationship. And Cam and I go way back. We've been to each other's weddings. We've seen so many milestones. But one of the coolest things about his professional development and just watching him kind of take this one on was he identified very early on the need for solution engineering being its own element, and solution engineering becoming a solution design department. And so it's been really cool to watch this grow. Cam, tell us a little bit about where this brainchild came from, and what you plan to do in 2026 for Wonderbots.
Yeah, Paula, I hope you see the reasons for it in the two great presenters we have on the call as well, with Ted and Sharon. But it really comes down to this, especially with agentic AI. While we may still use patterns to optimize and speed our path to ROI, automations and processes are becoming more and more personalized, right? And the reality is AI is the tool enabling that. When we look at RPA, right, fairly pitch and catch. You have a data automation process, guess what? We're going to extract, we're going to process, we're going to upload. Well, now what if that data automation needs to have data inquiry from an outside customer asking about the status of their invoice? What if you have somebody calling in because the amount that they were just invoiced was incorrect? All of a sudden, these processes take on a very personal nature to you. Who's the person picking up the phone? When are they able to pick up the phone? How do they pick up the phone? We're not just sending templated emails anymore. You need personality, you need personalization, you need core identity, right? Paul, you in marketing know that more than most, right? It's all about the identity. And because we are serving more customers than ever in a more personalized way than ever, we need to have a team that is here and able to enable that and support that, right? And I think we've achieved that here with Ted and Sharon, the capabilities and the skills they bring to the table. So, 2026, what does it hold? A lot of agents. I think that's pretty much a universal claim right now across the industry. But I think we have some fun, new, really exciting, rapidly deployed agents available. Really, again, focusing around sales engagement, marketing, even living within your policies, your contracts. How are we gonna, make sure that these policies are being applied correctly? Where are we falling out of compliance, right? These agents will work around us. They'll be able to act on these even quicker. So I'm really excited to bring that to market. And then I think we have a few more tricks up our sleeve, which you'll see later this year as well.
I totally agree. Well, I appreciate everybody's time and attention. I hope you guys see the value of solution design when thinking this through. Wonderbots, we are free, we are available and free and open to having conversations. The more we hear about the challenges that you're trying to solve with Agentic, the more valuable our input is to clients. And we're happy to take a 30-minute call with anybody who's just trying to explore, ask questions. There's no silly questions here. And as with every Wonder webinar, we'll be sending the recording, the answers to the questions, and a copy of the deck. We do have a special week of Wonder Women around the world taking place next week. So the link will be shared in the follow-up of this as well. A full week, 5 days of fantastic, powerful women from all different industries, all different walks of life, sharing how it is that they rose to the top and what they had to do to get there. So thank you so much, everybody. And we will see you guys next month. Take care. Thanks again, panelists.
Thanks, Paula. Thanks,
Take
everyone.
care, everybody. Thank you.